Welcome back. Today I thought we would do a little bit more on twists. There are two things that prompted this discussion. One was a question by a viewer about a specific type of twist that he wanted to know how it was done. And it's one I'd never heard of, so I had to do a little experimenting to see what I thought, and hopefully it's what that particular viewer had in mind. And the other was on a twist that I saw in somebody's shop over the weekend. I went to a blacksmithing get-together over the weekend and hung out with a bunch of friends, had a good time, and while it had nothing to do with the demonstration, he had a pile of twists, somewhat like what I have here, that are just sample pieces. And there was one twist in that pile that I had never seen anything vaguely similar before, and I had to try to figure out how it was done. So when you start looking at it closely, it actually wasn't too hard to figure out how it was done. And we're going to do a little sample of that and see if I was right. Typically, when we think of interesting twists, we really think about how do you manipulate the bar before you twist it. It's not really about what you do as you twist it. Of course, the reverse twist is an exception to that, and we've talked about the reverse twist. But sometimes it's about what you start with. And over here, we have the twists in question, more or less. Now, if you've ever seen an auger bit, you've seen a flat twist. That's not particularly difficult to do, although it's easy to get it all crooked and screwed up, and this one's not perfectly in line. But it shows you what just a plain flat twist is all about. The other flat twist, and this is what the question I had was a flat twist with a split. And this is not what it looks like as you twist it initially. There's a little bit extra step you have to go through to make it open up like this. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to look at this twist. This is the one I saw in Dan's shop that I had never seen before. I think it's a very interesting twist, and there is a very big secret to this twist that you may not be able to see from where you're looking. And you can, if most twists, if you look at the end, you can get some sort of a inclination on how that twist was done. It's hollow. So I'll let you think on that and how that came to be while we talk about the flat twist with a split, and then I'll show you how I did that. Flat bar twist, we're just going to start with a piece of 1/4 inch thick material. This looks like it's 1.5 inches wide and about 8 inches long. The dimensions aren't critical for doing test pieces unless you are trying to keep all your test pieces the same. But if you're doing a finished project and you think this is the twist that belongs in that project, then you need to be more aware of what twist, what flat bar might go with what railing pieces or frame pieces or fireplace tools or whatever it is you're putting this twist in. So we're going to get this hot. We're going to cut a slit down the middle of it, but not out either end. We're going to leave the ends intact. Now I'm just going to do this by eye, which I think for this project is just fine. But if you were going to use this in a gate, railing, or some other fairly high dollar application, I would take the time to lay it out very neatly and cleanly so you get your split right down the center. I would also sharpen your chisel first because you want this to be a nice clean cut. No big raggedy mess. This shows you why it's a good idea to take the time to lay this out. That's got a really nice off-center line down it right now. And don't cut through into your anvil. When you get close, let's go to a soft block. So this is going to be a little uneven, and that's going to affect the way it looks, and I apologize for that. Now you can turn this over and work from the back side over a soft block right here at the anvil. I think what we'll do is go to the treadle hammer because it's just ideal for this. So I've got a brass plate under the treadle hammer here. It's a good idea to cool your chisel from time to time. That's starting to cut through. Do a pretty good job right at the ends so you have a nice transition. But there we're through. You can see how uneven it is because I didn't take the time to lay it out. So that's a lesson learned. I thought I could eyeball it pretty good, and I did not do a very good job of it. I want to open this up just a little bit so I can get a file in there. I'm going to clean some of that rag up. I think it's really a bad idea to leave a raggedy cut on anything. So that gives me just enough room for a flat file to get in there and clean that up. We'll let that air cool so that it is as soft as it can be. It can be hard to get the file into the areas that are still tight right at the end. If you got a file you use hot, my hot rasp is too big for this. But if you've got a nice littler file you don't mind using on hot iron, you can use that. You can also use an angle grinder. So we're going to twist this up, and those flats are going to kind of collapse onto one another. Part of what makes this look so good is that nice open twist. It's also getting very deformed, and we're going to show you how to fix both of those. Before we go too much further, let's straighten this out a little bit. A rawhide mallet on a wood stump is a pretty reliable way to straighten twists out. That's a lot better. Okay, now let's get it hot again and I'll show you the trick to opening that. I really shouldn't imply that this is some kind of a trick. It's really quite simple. We're just going to untwist it. But we're not going to untwist it very far. That's only about a quarter turn there, and it doesn't look bad. Let's see what it does if we go no, it's going to be way too much if we go too much further around. I think I'm going to leave it right there. Now sometimes, if it's not opening evenly, you may have to get in here and pry with a flat chisel or a screwdriver, or heat it with a torch here and cool it there. And these open twists can be quite fiddly. But they are also quite rewarding because I think that looks pretty good. I can see lots of application for that. It needs to go back to the stump and straighten it. It's even easier to accidentally bend this at this point and get it kinked funny if you're not careful. Seems like we ought to be able to just bend it in the vise. I don't know if we can or not. That helps. Well, have you figured out the secret to this interesting twist here? It's really quite simple. It's a piece of angle iron. So let's see what we can do with a piece of angle iron when we twist it. The first thing we have to do is give it a way to grip in the vise. So I'm going to try and make a fairly even squish here. And just close those ends up. And that's just a place to hold it. We'll do that on both ends. I think the more even this is, the more even the twist will be. So that's all there is. Now we need a nice even heat across the length of the angle iron. So we've got a nice heat on this. This is a fairly long piece of angle iron, so this may not behave as well as we'd like. And we are just going to twist it, and it's going to go all wonky and funky until it starts to support itself. And there you can see we're getting what we're after. And the ends just do all sorts of weird things. So you're going to have to cut this off. And it gets to a point where it just doesn't want to go anymore. And that's really about all there is to this one. The ends are not usable. We're going to have to cut those off. But other than that, I think that's pretty good. It's a little bit bent. We'll go over to the stump and we'll fix that. You don't want to do too much because this will start to open up. And if it does open up, you can take it back to the vise and just snug it up a little bit. Those are a couple of fun little twists. I'm not exactly sure where you might find application for them, but I think we'll try to come up with something. And maybe we'll even try to find a way to use those in a project here on the channel one of these days. I can't think of anything right offhand, but that doesn't mean we won't come up with something. They might make interesting tool handles. Or perhaps it would be an interesting piece in the middle of a fireplace tool stand or something. I'm sure we can come up with something. There's the one we did. I tightened it back up and straightened it a little bit more. I think you have to cut the ends off of this, though. It just doesn't close up very nicely at the ends. So I think you have to cut it off, and then it will almost always require a more modern weld to weld this into something else to use it. There are lots of different twists you can do. We'll address some of these other possibilities in future videos. Maybe once a month or so we'll just cover a twist or two just to keep things interesting. I have no idea how long we can keep that up. There's probably a lot more twist options out there than I've ever done, and I've done a lot more than what are shown right here. So we'll do some of that stuff and see what we can end up with. In the meantime, I'd love it if you give a thumbs up to the video and hit that subscribe button. Get out to the shop, make something, have fun, stay safe, and we will see you next time.